Okay, everyone, we'll make a start with the webinar series and webinar one this time. Thank you very much for joining us here today for the Regia Marine Seismic Survey webinar one. We have a little bit to get through in terms of introducing the activity, talking a little bit about our consultation processes and our environmental assessments, and we'll also talk through what we've done to date and what activities are coming next. I guess the first point to start with is a little bit of housekeeping. So your microphone and cameras have been disabled, but there is an opportunity for you to raise questions in a Q&A function, which you should be able to find in your Teams program. Feel free to raise any questions at any time. I've got some time allocated at the end where I should be able to answer all of them, hopefully most of them. And so please do raise those questions at any time. We'll carry on with the webinar series, and if there are any late attendees, we'll admit those folks in, and they'll just join in as and when they arrive. Just for your information, the webinar is recorded and will be posted on our activity-specific website within a couple of days. So to start with, just would like to introduce the Regia Marine Seismic Survey. It's the name of a survey that is proposed to be undertaken by CGG, an international geophysical company who have got a long history of undertaking seismic surveys here in Australia. The Regia survey is named after a shipwreck along this coast, and so that's why the name has been given. The seismic survey, for those of you that aren't aware, seismic surveying is a technique used to explore and map the subsurface of the ocean floor. Essentially what happens in a seismic survey is there's a pneumatic discharge of air and sound that is pushed through the water column, interacts with the ocean floor, and we can pick up any return signals from different source types of rock in some hydrophones that are towed behind the seismic vessel on streamers. So it's a very typical marine activity in some sense, with the addition, obviously, of this of the sound discharge. Because of that, there are some environmental impacts and risk assessments that need to be undertaken to understand what the profile of those impacts and risks are, and that process of identifying the impacts and risks and starting to assess them has started now. The consultation for this activity started back at the start of February, so we're 1 month in. We're still identifying people that we need to talk to who may be affected by this activity, and that process actually carries on throughout the activity. But obviously, at some point, we need to make a submission to NOPSEMA, who is the National Offshore Petroleum Safety and Environmental Management Authority. They are our regulator, and we need to make an environment plan submission to them to seek approval for this project. And so on the 30th of June, there'll be a pause in the consultation process while we prepare our documentation for the regulated public comment period, where individuals will be able to make comment directly to the regulator. And essentially, though, that the consultation process has that small pause, but consultation is essentially open from now all the way through to the end of the activity. At the moment, the Regia Marine Seismic Survey has a very large operating window between the 1st of November 2023 and the 31st of October 2028. So a 5-year window there. The likelihood is, and we certainly expect, that window will narrow as we go through the consultation process and as we understand the environmental impacts and risks further. It should be noted that the survey duration is 90 days, where the vessel will be out on the water, with approximately or a maximum of 60 acquisition days during that 90. So whilst 5 years might seem like an incredibly long time, At the moment, being so early in our environmental assessment processes, we're keeping as many options open around the activity, but that will narrow as we go through the process. We have got some information flyers on more detail of exactly what the activity entails. One on an overview of the activity, and then one on what is a seismic survey. Those information flyers are available on our website, www.regiamss.com.au. The next slide is going to talk to you a little bit about the environmental assessments. So first point to note is CGG, as I said, has got a long track record of undertaking seismic surveys in Australia, and the CGG internal standards require that our activities are carried out in an environmentally responsible manner, and that means in accordance with the principles of ecologically sustainable development, and also that we manage environmental impacts and risks to as low as reasonably practicable and to below an acceptable level. So those are the kind of overarching criteria that we have to meet. We have regulatory requirements in the environmental assessment space. We have to prepare a document called an environment plan under the Offshore Petroleum Greenhouse Gas Storage Act and the associated regulations. And what those regulations require are that we follow a risk assessment process similar to the one that you can see on the screen, which is the process you can see on the screen is actually ISO 31000, which is what the regulations are built on. It's also what CGG standards are built on. So we have a regulatory requirement to manage our environmental impacts and risks, comply with not just the offshore petroleum legislation, but all environmental management law. And there's a specific obligation on us to consult with relevant persons who may be affected by our activity. That process that CGG has to run needs to identify all relevant persons, each individual relevant person that may be affected, and we're right in the middle of trying to find as many people as we can to complete that consultation. Just on the environmental impact assessment, to help with the consultation, it became necessary for us to do a preliminary environmental impact and risk assessment. That document is going through the final stages of review and should be published early in March. So that document essentially outlines all of the cause-effect pathways between our activity and the risk. Let me just admit that somebody here. Welcome to our new guests. We've started the webinar, and I'll carry on. Just to note, the Q&A function is open for any questions you'd like to ask. So as I was saying, we will publish our preliminary environmental impact and risk assessment, and what that does is identify the cause-effect pathways between our activity and the sensitive receptors that we've been able to identify so far. Also in March, we'll be publishing our environmental assessment methodology. This will describe how we think about environmental impacts and risks and how we manage each of those and the processes we follow to assess them. We'll also be publishing in March our implementation strategy. This is a document that explains how during an activity we monitor our environmental performance to ensure that we're meeting the standards that we set for ourselves and that the regulator has agreed. Consultation process. CGG believes it's obviously very important for us to get the context, not just from ourselves, but from the communities that we work within. And we are encouraging those communities to have their say through a variety of different means. The number one of those is through our activity-specific website at www.regiamss.com.au. The 5 columns that you can see on the screen here represent our 5-month consultation process. We started that process back on the 1st of February, and we've been raising awareness this month. I'll explain what we've been doing in the next couple of slides. But as far as the consultation process goes, that process was opened, and we have started notifying government agencies. As you can see, over the next 4 months, we've got a very clear process that we're trying to follow. The pathway for every individual through these steps is obviously going to be different, and we'll engage with those individuals on a one-on-one basis. The 4 steps that remain are to establish the context. So this is helping us in our full impact assessments, where we're inviting commentary and information from anybody actually worldwide to come and comment on our project. During March, we'll also be notifying affected persons and trying to find more relevant persons for us to complete the consultation. And we'll be providing a lot more information as it becomes available throughout March. Excuse me. During April, we will be completing our environmental assessments. So there's quite a few that will end up being done on the full basis. And then subsequently in May, those environmental assessments will be published in full for comment on our website. In May, we will be working on the mitigation and management strategies. We are already aware that we have some protected species of whale that we need to manage our interactions around and preferably avoid where we can. We are obviously potentially quite close to the coast, so we need to think about the usage of beaches in the area. And obviously we're interacting with a number of fisheries as well, and so we're very aware of the rock lobster fishery that has some significant socioeconomic benefits in the region. So during the May period, we'll be again engaging with relevant persons, talking about our management and mitigation strategies. We're determining the control measures we need to put in place, and setting our environmental performance, all in collaboration with the communities that we're working within. In May, at the end of May, we will publish our full environment plan. So this is the draft document that we're proposing to put forward to NOPSEMA for assessment. Over the period of June, we have an opportunity for relevant persons to raise objections and claims. We'll be out in the community, encouraging people to share with us their views about our environmental assessments and our management and mitigation measures. And June really is a time for us to be out in the community and really listen to that feedback and obviously subsequently adapt our plans for the activity prior to making that submission to NOPSEMA for public comment. So what have we done so far? 2 major work streams for the Regia Marine Seismic Survey. Those being consultation and our environmental assessment. At the moment, we've been pretty heavy on this month in terms of consultation. So we have published our activity-specific website. We've published our full community consultation and engagement plan, which is a 30-odd page document. And if you don't have the time to read that, there is an information flyer with a 1-page summary of our consultation and engagement plan available on the website. We've published our activity flyer and answered the question that we get quite a lot, which is what is a seismic survey? I think most of you on the webinar today will have seen our advertising on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook. We really are targeting that advertising to an 80-kilometre area around our environment planning area. We've undertaken a radio interview and continue to engage with ABC Southwest Victoria with community concerns as they come up. We have completed our letters to all relevant state and Commonwealth government agencies, and we've written to local councils, conservation group, traditional owners and local businesses. We have requested contact details for fishers, and those processes take a little bit of time, but as soon as we get that information, we'll be writing to the local fishers in the area as well. In terms of the environmental assessment, very early stages of our environmental assessment at the moment. We have commissioned a preliminary environmental impact and risk assessment. As I mentioned earlier, that document will be shared in full in early March. And we've commenced searches for environmental values and sensitivities within our environmental planning area. And what that means is we've used government-provided search functions, looking at species distribution, looking at protected matters, and other flora and fauna that can be found in the region. What happens next? Again, two major work streams for what happens next, and this is really focused on the next month of activities. For consultation, our relevant person search continues. It's a search that kind of never ends, and we continue to keep everything open while we search for those relevant persons to come in and talk to us. And I'd encourage any of you listening to the webinar if you think you might be a relevant person, please pick up the phone or drop us an email. And if you know anybody you think might be a relevant person, please forward on the information on the website. We really do want to hear from them. In fact, as of tomorrow, notices will go into local print media, so the Warrnambool Standard. We will also be undertaking advertising on local radio. We've got a couple more interviews lined up to try and raise awareness about the project and to find relevant persons. I've mentioned the 3 documents that will be published in March, and if there are more available, then we will publish those as well, but these are the ones that we have in our plan to be published in early March. We're going to continue to advertise on social media, again, really trying to find people who want to engage and have their say on the project. We'll be writing to fishers, fishing associations, and other relevant persons over the course of March. And we will continue to follow up with relevant persons that we've already contacted to make sure that they have the information that we've provided. In terms of the environmental assessment, the activities we'll be undertaking during March are really to encourage people to engage with our location-based feedback tool through the interactive map on our website, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. We have now commenced our full assessments. We're starting with some of the more routine discharges from vessels and some of the more basic assessments to start with, while we gather information from the community and commentary on our assessment methodologies. We are aware that for impacts and risks such as sound discharges and oil spill, that it's likely we'll need some modelling requirements. So we're just looking at scoping those modelling requirements at the moment. They're 2 areas where there's fairly high levels of uncertainty in our assessments. So we can already ascertain that additional quantitative modelling is going to support us in those assessments. As I mentioned, though, from the environment side of things, really the next month is about understanding the context that we're working in. And so that means gathering information about the activity, about the environment, the environmental values and sensitivities, and the social, economic, ecological, biological features of the environment. As such, we have a location-based feedback tool on our website. Within the environment planning area, which is the larger area you can sort of see just behind this call out box, go onto the website, have a look at that, and you can drop a concern or some information or a comment anywhere within that environment area. So if you've got a particular concern about interactions with seismic and whales, or if you've got particular information about whales or lobsters or any environmental value or sensitivity, you can pop that information into the website. And what we'd like you to do is drag the relevant icon from the top menu bar, whether that's a concern, some information, or a comment. Write your feedback and input your contact details into the pop-up box. Accept the terms and conditions. And those terms and conditions basically say that the information you're providing is as a member of the public. And then what we would like you to do is submit that feedback to us. And in that way, we'll be able to gather information from the community directly and feed that directly into the environmental assessment processes that will run throughout March and April. That's the end of the slides. I wanted to leave enough time for Q&A. For those of you that have joined the call a little bit late, the Q&A function should be open and easily accessible within your Teams menu. So I'd like to invite any questions now about anything we've presented in this first webinar. While you guys are thinking of questions, we will try and get the camera sorted for the subsequent webinars. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to, we did a trial run and everything was fine, and for some reason my camera is not wanting to show. So I can't say hi to you all, but I will have that up and running for the next webinars. Okay, we haven't got any Q&As that have come through, so just 30 seconds more, just in case there's any questions that anybody would like to have answered. Got something in the chat here, thank you very much. We have, is this different to the TGS Schlumberger survey proposed to the same area? So it is a different survey, but it's over a different area. I might just, if I can here, jump back to the map. So our survey here, hopefully you can see my cursor as well. Our survey activity planning area here is this in this pink area. We understand that the TGS and Schlumberger survey is just outboard of that in much deeper water. We are engaging through relevant person consultation with TGS on their survey. But the answer to your question is that yes, it is a different survey and it is in a slightly different area. And I'm conscious you may have follow-up questions after that, so I'll provide a bit of time there for you to write any follow-up questions you may have. Okay, no worries. All right, well, look, that will conclude the first webinar then. We will run another webinar every month through till the end of June. And then we will assess whether we need to continue with whether there's benefit of continuing those webinars during the assessment process, which we're more than prepared to do. And if anybody would like those, then please don't forget to request them, and we will provide those monthly webinars throughout the assessment process. For now, though, I wish you all good evening, and I look forward to engaging with you all soon. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.